Hello, and a warm welcome to our 100th episode of the Curious Advantage podcast. Today marks a milestone for us, so we're going to be doing something a little different. We don't have any other guests, it's Paul, Garrick and myself, and we're going to look a little bit back over the course of the last 6 years, it is scary, at the episodes we've had, some of the themes that we've talked about, some of the things we've learned personally and our takeaways. We've also got a bit of an announcement that we'll be sharing and also look a little bit to the future.
Welcome to the Curious Advantage podcast, an exploration of the idea of curiosity and its increasing importance for thriving in the digital age, from the authors of The Curious Advantage.
It's been quite a journey from a conversation we had over dinner back in 2019, I think it was, when I asked Paul and Garrick whether they might give me some advice on writing a book. And that led to us actually writing The Curious Advantage, which led on to the podcast. And 6 years later, 100 episodes on, and here we are. So maybe, Paul, let's kick us off with a sort of look back from your perspective on some of your reflections over the last 6 years.
Well, 2020, guys, we were all much younger, no doubt, much better looking, more hair. We were in the middle of lockdown, do you remember?
Yes.
The pandemic was in full swing in the world, and one of the reasons we started the podcast was because it was a brilliant way to research, to have curious conversations with people who were at the cutting edge of their field, because it informed the work that we were doing. It was all entirely remote, wasn't it? And even when we started recording the podcast, and we still do it remotely, Simon with you being in Switzerland, Garrick and I being in the UK, it's been a format that's just worked. We've gone from audio only to video only. We've spoken to 100 plus guests now, with this being the 100th episode. And it's been quite an amazing journey over covering neuroscience, covering leadership, covering art, pottery, cartoons, quantum. And of course, in 2022, we had AI. So the world has taken on another massive shift since then.
I was having a look in preparation for this actually at some of the stats, because maybe people are surprised, but we don't keep a running detail on the stats. But I was quite pleasantly surprised that actually, if we look this year, 2026, we've in the Apple podcast charts, we've actually been number 8 in New Zealand. We've been number 24 in the UK, 18 in the Netherlands, 11 in Belgium, even 28 in Ukraine, 16 in South Africa, 14 in Ireland, 23 in India, so it's been right up there with some of the world's best podcasts in the Apple Management Podcast rankings. So something that was never really a plan. It was, let's publish some of our conversations. It's great to see that it's had some traction. I guess a huge thank you to all of our listeners on behalf of all three of us for listening and keeping the conversation going with us along the journey.
Absolutely. And a thank you to our production team over the years who stuck by us and make us look great on these things.
Not easy sometimes.
No, I mean, there have been some great conversations. There have also been some difficult conversations as well. We will talk about those in a minute, I'm sure. But the thing that really stays with me is how this kind of came out of necessity. There was no marketing during COVID. Our publishers, nobody knew what to do. So we thought we'd launch a podcast. And now we're 100 in. And I have to say, personally, it's been an amazing journey to speak to some of these incredible brains and keep our curiosity alive and keep our thinking, on the edge or challenged, if nothing else. If I remember a little bit, some of the memorable ones are people who weren't in the business world, like artists like Sir Michael Craig Martin, or graphic novelists like John Dunning, or potters like Magdalena. Incredible people with incredible insights from outside of business. But then, of course, within business, you got Alexia Cambon from Microsoft and her frontier work on AI and what that means. Fascinating. I mean, these are the kinds of things that stick with me. And then very difficult conversations we've had with futurists like Javier and so on, who talking about beyond VUCA and the kind of chaos of the world that we're facing. And then incredible intelligences like Indy Selvarajah, who really seems to have tools that can shift the entire planet, constantly challenging us.
Yeah, I remember that conversation with Indy actually when he was sat in his garden, and incredibly bright guy. The limits of testing my brain, I think, on trying to keep up with him and turn it into sense. But I remember some amazing takeaways of his views on sort of how things will impact on city design and all sorts of other areas. I think for me, it's been the variety of guests. I mean, to go from Navy SEAL Team 6, Rich Deviney, and sort of going into, what makes a Navy SEAL. We had, keeping that sort of high performance elite sports, we had Scott Pelton, and those sort of takeaways there of the importance of sleep, nutrition, movement, and mindset. We had Darren Shanton quite a long time ago now, who was the All Blacks coach or manager, and remember him talking around, when you're the greatest of all time as a All Blacks rugby player, still the importance of being curious and sort of how you improve what you're doing. And then, we've had incredible guests. I mean, one that was very memorable for me was Jose Manuel Barroso. It was a real privilege having former Prime Minister and European Commission President on. And my takeaway from that conversation was if you've got a tough problem, actually make it bigger. And it was like, actually, if you can make something bigger, you get more people involved, and actually it gives you a greater chance to actually get it resolved. I mean, there's so many great conversations that we've had. Paul, what were a few of your favourite conversations?
Similar, so many. I mean, I think the one that recently stuck out for me is talking with Amy Edmondson, who, of course, brilliant person, and how she talks about essentially getting comfortable with failing. And I think that's probably been a theme over the past few years as a society, as we've been dealing with massive change, experimenting, trying, failing, and creating the psychological safety around each other as we try new things out. And of course, with AI, and we've had a lot of really interesting conversations that, including, do you remember 3 years ago we interviewed ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't we find ourselves innovative then? That looks so archaic now.
I had somebody talk to me about that the other day, just this week, kind of going, you interviewed ChatGPT and they spoke to you, and she decided that her name, she was female and all the rest of it. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, Ada, wasn't it? After Ada Lovelace, that was the identity that ChatGPT gave itself. Yes.
But also the neuroscience of curiosity, I think, has been really quite surprising to me. I hadn't realised quite how connected something as hard to put your finger on as curiosity is to our biology. And I think that's one of the things I've learned, how just by being curious, you not only learn better, you retain more, you actually stimulate your own well-being, right? It's better for you to be curious. And I think that for me is something I've really held on to throughout, the past few years of working on this with you guys.
I remember having a basher from Craft who was, she did 100 days of faith. I think that's what we looked at, where she spent a year or more going every week to a different faith or different places of worship, and understanding, how complicated and complex and fascinating that world is, and all she learned from that really stayed with me. Somebody would be brave enough to step outside of their own world and explore openly. I mean, this question of faith, which is amazing, and that also the idea of the meta, what it means to be human in this age of AI. And AI has been a theme that comes up again and again, and more specifically, what it means for the change that's coming around in our organization. Speaking to some, the great guys out of California, other podcasters, people who've got their finger on the pulse. And then the great thing for me personally is that we hear what the challenges are that society is facing. How do we get young people to come through, which was always the starting point for curiosity. We thought it was about knowledge. How do we train young people in what's needed to be, part of the digital revolution at the time? Now, how do we bring young people into profitable, valuable working lives or the future that is unfolding? And these are the kinds of things that really stay with me and sort of, give me questions to ask the experts.
That was where my mind was going as well. Actually, while we're talking about this, I'd love also if people can share again what they've taken away from the podcast episode. So wherever you're listening to this, if there's LinkedIn or YouTube or do share your favorite moments, your favorite guests, because that will also give us a view on who we need to contact to get back on the podcast as well. But yeah, the education piece is one. If I sort of look back down the list of 100 guests, we had Sal Cambon. I remember that was in the sort of early days of ChatGPT. I think he'd just had access to GPT-4, I think it was, or 4.0 at that point. And he'd done Camigo, and that's one I've sort of referred back to many, many times since. More recently, we had Ted Dintersmith, the education reformist. And even on our most recent episode that we've just been recording with Mike Houseman, we're discussing on that as well, the role of education, and particularly with AI, how important it is to build those AI skills, with the discussion around, is AI cheating or not? How should universities, how should schools be approaching AI? I think that's a really important topic at the moment, and that's one I think looking to the future, we're going to have many more discussions around that one, because I think there's so much to be learning around that.
That's right. And the thing that it really helped me with was the fear of AI taking away all the jobs and disrupting society in a way that destroys economies and so on. And you hear that a lot, and you feel that comes up in some of the comments, but that fear, I think I've got rid of, because I really have come to see that it's change. Change is normal. But what happens is, by being curious, we understand that there are problems that get created through all this change, and yet those are just problems to be solved. And where there are problems to be solved, there are opportunities. And so it's a shift on opportunities and a shift of focus, which means that there is disruption. But if you're open, you'll be able to make it or leap the abyss. I mean, it brings me back to one of my favorite podcasts, and I know we don't want to talk about too many favorites because they're all great, but with Chris Meyer, who was a colleague of ours, who sadly is no longer with us, but he gave a podcast about the future, him being a futurist and so knowledgeable, where he looked about and talked about and all the different pathways that they explore, so that if difficulty comes in one pathway, they have other opportunities, they have other things on the go. At the same time, he called it from the Big Mac to the Big Bang, which is so memorable. And the point about this curiosity and this curious podcast, for me, it's one of the ways of keeping those channels open to things that I wouldn't have considered in the past, things that I didn't know about, and which give me options as we move forward. One of which, Paul will be pleased to know, is on health and well-being, which has been a recurring theme that pitches up. Understanding about the vagus nerve, understanding about the link between our well-being and curiosity and so on, encourages me to keep fit.
I think that's a nice thing. We've had a good diversity. So talking about health, I remember the episode with Giles around some of the obesity drugs and things like that we've tried to keep, I guess, a variety of mainstream topics, but also going into some maybe parallel topics to business, some maybe away from business, but actually even some of the ones that have been not necessarily obvious to be tied to business on the face of it have often had things that we can learn that we can bring back into, or at least I've been able to bring back into my day-to-day.
Yeah, curiosity seems to be a topic that is evergreen, right? I think that's something else that we found, that nice thing about curiosity, you can talk to almost anybody about it, because if you are curious, then they are probably a curious person as well. I mean, imagine we've had Andy Clark talking about consciousness and the future. And I think these sorts of conversations where it's really questioning, what does it mean to be human? We spoke to Kentaro Toyama, do you remember? Again, talking about ethics, consciousness, and how we save ourselves from the cult of technology. So some of these conversations really pushed the thinking, certainly my thinking, in terms of like who we are and what's our role in how we take our society forward.
Well, the Kentaro one sticks in my mind, and it sounds like, Garrick, you've passed the fear point with AI. I'm still in two minds that there's still an element of fear there, and the Kentaro conversation was an interesting one. I remember him saying, in his view, when we look at the incentives, we're going to end up in some sort of disaster event before we then put the right checks and balances in place. So
that's right.
And I remember Ari Popper as well, who was had his team of sci-fi writers that helped envisage the future for Fortune 500 organizations and things. That we've had some really positive views of the future, but we've also had people presenting maybe that more dystopian view, or that we're not necessarily default onto the good path, that there's things we need to do, the agency we need to take in order to put things onto the right track, which has been certainly creating a lot to be thoughtful about, which maybe brings us on to why curiosity is becoming not just an advantage, but that it's becoming more of an imperative. And maybe, Paul, you'd like to share some of our news of what's going to be happening in the next couple of months.
Well, big news for those that follow us at Curious Advantage. We're in the final stages of writing the next book. The next book will be called The Curious Imperative. You heard it here first. We're very, very excited to get this out and get this into people's hands. And why did we write this? Well, we felt sort of 5-6 years further on from the Curious Advantage that actually curiosity is even more important than it was when we first wrote the book. Originally, we thought, well, actually, curiosity is probably the greatest advantage we as humans have in the digital age. Well, in the advent of AI and other technologies such as tokenization and quantum that are coming down the line, we think being curious is actually going to be an imperative. It's going to talk about, why does the future feel so unsettling for us? What does it mean to be human? What are we going to do when everything becomes abundant? But also, as ever, we take not just a positive, but a hopefully balanced view of the future. And we think about, well, what will we do as humans to take agency, and how can we use our curiosity to take agency in this changing world? So, we're really excited about the book. Check out the links. Please register your interest, and we're very excited to hear your thoughts.
We've learned so much. I mean, we've tried to synthesize not only a new research, but also what we've been told by our guests on the podcast so many times, and feed that into the Curious Imperative. The idea that not only are we naturally curious, but that we as humans, as we learn more about neuroscience and as we learn more about what it means to be human, both at a metaphysical as well as a physical level, we come to have some more tools and more ability to kind of apply the things that we're learning in our everyday lives, which kind of hopefully makes it easier as we definitely go through this transition that's happening. I keep on thinking back to the start of the 20th century, which was characterized, yes, by war, but it was also characterized by the discovery of oil on a very large scale, the discovery of industrialization, moving away from steam, but to flight, and the invention of white goods for the house. We take them for granted now, but they fundamentally changed the way the world was operating and what it meant to be human in the world, and who was in charge, what the elite were up to, and who were servants previously, and created the middle class and so on. A huge shift, which we were born into. And now we face the 21st century, and our curiosity has led us to understand some of these big trends that are coming down the line, as Paul mentioned, quantum, AI, tokenization, to name a few. And these things, as they scale, are going to have a huge impact on us. But we also know what it means more to be human, which is fascinating to me. What is the neuroscience telling us about how we respond and how we can respond and how we can impact not only our well-being, but also our mental well-being as we face these huge changes that are going to impact our children and the generations down the line?
I think there's been quite a change over those 6 years in terms of how people perceive curiosity. I think we probably weren't the first book to write about it, but we were amongst a small number of books on curiosity. And I think it's become much more mainstream, much more talked about over that 5 or 6 years, and it's now recognized by World Economic Forum as one of the fastest growing skills, and it's held up in many examples. And I guess for me, it is, and it's why we're calling it now the imperative. But it's, how do you navigate through the unknown? Whether that's AI, geopolitics, or all of these other pieces? I think you have to have that element of curiosity now. And I think across those 100 conversations now, there's so many examples of why that's so important.
You're listening to the Curious Advantage podcast, inspired by the book The Curious Advantage, written by Paul Ashcroft, Simon Brown, and Garrick Jones. Subscribe to the podcast today.
So would you guys be interested in the top 10 episodes that have been listened to in the last year?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Don't think I'll know where to start on that. So, super curious.
Shannon Menifee, Relational Curiosity, Trust and Psychological Safety. Number 9, Viola Rollins from the London Business School, Recrafting the Psychological Contract. Number 8, Kentaro Toyama, who we've talked about, AI, Ethics, Consciousness, and Rescuing Us from the Cult of Technology. Number 7, Rich Deviney, the Navy SEAL trainer, Applying a Navy SEAL's Attributes Mindset. Number 6, James Cashier, Navigating the Age of Chaos, Barney.
Yes.
That was a tough one. Number 5, Ari Popper, Imagining the Future Where Sci-Fi Meets Curiosity. Fascinating. Number 4, Amy Edmondson, Practical Tips for Leaders and Fostering Positive Failure. Number 3, Giles Yeo, Weight Loss, Ozempic, and the End of Calorie Counting. And number 2, Dr. Serena Gonçalves-Fersch, Curious About Learning, Curiosity, AI, Leadership, Talent, and Women in Leadership. And number 1, Alexia Cambon, The Future of Work, Frontier Firms, Agent Bosses, AI, and the 2026 Work Trend Index.
Which was a great episode. I've recommended that one to many people in terms of getting Alexia's phenomenal views and research around Frontier Firm and where things are going from agent bosses and working with AI. There's some great insights from that episode.
Who would be your most wanted next guests, guys? I can start you off while you're thinking.
Go on.
Well, can I have 2? Can I have Fei-Fei Li, Dr. Fei-Fei Li, computer scientist, human-centered AI, and amazing, leading voice on human-centered AI. And then, if I'm allowed to, can I have Dario Amodei as well, please, of Anthropic, because why not? Someone who's absolutely shaping and changing our society as we stand on it. I think they would be my 2 wish list guests. What would be yours, Simon?
Well, Dario would have been up there. I think I've been listening a lot to the Moonshots podcasts. So Peter Diamandis, Salim Ismail, and the team there. So maybe getting 1 or 2 of them on would be a great conversation with some phenomenal views on sort of where the future is going and this sort of escape velocity of 5 years' time, where we reach a point where we'll live a year or more longer for every year that goes by. So and then the talk of the Dyson swarm of data centers in space and all of these pieces. So I think that would make for a very interesting conversation. But I think any of the sort of great minds around AI, but also actually I'd be interested to go both sides of AI as well. So we get the positive ones from the AI large language model teams, etc., but also maybe Eliezer Yudkowsky or Tristan Harris or some of the counter voices. Actually, Tristan Harris would be fantastic to have on, or any of the sort of counter views there. Jeffrey Hinton would be fantastic as well. So maybe so we can get that balanced view from the sort of positive, but also the voice of we need to be very cautious about some of these things as well.
Exactly. I'd love to speak to Peter Thiel and ask him what the hell has he got in mind and what is he doing and where's it going. I think there are 2 degrees of separation to Peter Thiel, so it's not outside of the bands of fantasy. And there's a fascinating economist called Mariana Mazzucato, who's Italian, but she's looking at circular economics and accounting for circular economics and all the things that are needed to really take us into a less consumer-based accounting mechanism and a less consumer-based world. So it starts to make it valuable to kind of put all the stuff back into the economy, which is where it should be anyway. So she's invented all the stuff, and she's got some great. I'd love to have Marianne on the podcast.
And another one, maybe, which I think you have some links here, Garrick, as well, would be keeping the art theme, Banksy. In terms of a curious mind, I think that would be a great conversation. So going outside of our normal sort of business or an AI lens. Yeah,
that's right. And do you think we could have Elon? Should we aim for Elon? Has he got time?
Would be fascinating. It would be an amazing conversation.
I mean, also we talked about Jeffrey Hinton, but I'm also interested in talk to Sam Altman as well. I mean, these are people who are defining what's going on now. Whether these things last down into the century, who knows? But I think certainly what's happening in the next 10 years is being defined by not only these organizations, but also these people. So it'll be fun to talk to them.
From a great entrepreneurial minds perspective, Richard Branson is someone I would love to talk to as well. I think the curiosity he's shown over his career and the pivots he's taken along the way and some of the really sort of courageous, bold moves he's done, I think that would be fascinating to learn more about.
Yeah.
There we go. So we got a few names to keep the series going for another 100 episodes.
Our wish list, that will keep Jess busy.
Can I ask for Taylor Swift?
You can ask.
Taylor Swift's fascinating because, she banked $1 billion for her last tour. And yet she does it by just connecting with a specific demographic. And her marketing is astonishing. So there's my full wish list.
You're a secret Swiftie, are you, Garrick? We didn't know that about you.
I might be. I might have to ask for somebody else in the music in this industry to keep me cool. But I don't know. I gave up being cool a long time ago.
So I think we're coming towards the end. So just take this opportunity on behalf of all three of us, I guess, to just say a huge thank you for joining us along the journey of the last 6 years on the podcast. A huge thanks to those of you who have bought the book and for all of the support and comments and things that you've given us, and to our 100+ guests as well. An enormous thank you for joining us and making for curious conversations along the way. But it's not over yet. There's plenty more to come. So do send us your ideas of who you'd like us to be talking to. And we'll be sharing more details around the Curious Imperative, likely probably August, September time that we'll be launching that. We'll have links in the comments for more information and to sign up to make sure you're getting updates on when that's coming.
Happy 100th, guys.
Indeed. Happy 100th.
Happy 100th.
You've been listening to a Curious Advantage podcast. This series is about how individuals and organizations use the power of curiosity to drive success in their lives and businesses, especially in the context of our new digital reality. It brings to life the latest understanding from neuroscience, anthropology, history, business, and behaviorism of how curiosity makes these useful for everyone. One ask, if you've been with us for the journey and enjoyed it, the ratings is hugely valuable for us. So if you haven't already, we'd love it if you could just click on the 5-star rating, because that really helps people discover the podcast, and that's helped us to get into those Apple charts and things that we referenced earlier. That will also help us in getting more amazing guests along as well. So do please click on that 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it, and do subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. And we, as always, would love to hear from you. So through whichever channels it is, LinkedIn in the comments or however, then please do share your thoughts and feedback on anything you'd like to see differently, anything you'd like to see on future episodes, etc. So a huge thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Curious Advantage podcast. The Curious Advantage book is now available to purchase on Amazon. Stay tuned for the next episode and keep exploring curiously. This podcast is produced by Jessica Wickham.